You've been living your life caught between two philosophies, and you don't even know it. Every single day, you face moments where you have to decide, do I let this go, or do I grab it with both hands? Do I detach, or do I pursue? And most of the time, you choose wrong. Not because you're stupid. Not because you lack willpower. But because nobody ever taught you the difference between when detachment is your greatest weapon and when detachment is the thing quietly destroying you. That ends right now. Two of the most dangerous minds in history built their entire systems on opposite principles. One said the root of all suffering is desire, and the only path to freedom is eliminating attachment entirely. The other said the only way to acquire and hold power is through aggressive pursuit and calculated risk. One retreats inward. The other projects outward. And here is the paradox that most people completely miss: both frameworks demand total emotional detachment from outcomes. Both require you to stop being ruled by your feelings. But they prescribe opposite actions. One says let go of everything external. The other says seize everything external. And if you apply the wrong one at the wrong moment, you don't just lose, you get destroyed. So let me walk you through 7 principles that will tell you exactly when to withdraw and when to strike. Because the answer is not what you think. The answer is that both are weapons, and a master knows which weapon to draw and when. Stop pretending you have to pick a side. The people who pick a side are the people who get used by those who didn't. Let's begin. Number 1. Most people confuse detachment with passivity, and that confusion is quietly costing them everything. Here is what Epictetus understood that you still don't. He drew a line through reality itself. On one side, things in your control. On the other side, things not in your control. Your thoughts, your judgments, your choices, your effort, those are yours. Everything else, your reputation, your wealth, other people's opinions, outcomes, the past, the future, those are not yours. And the moment you try to control what is not yours, you enslave yourself. This sounds simple. It is not simple. Because your brain is wired to grab, to cling, to pursue, to want. And every time you reach for something outside your control and fail, you suffer. Every time you reach for something outside your control and succeed, you become terrified of losing it, so you suffer anyway. That is the trap. Epictetus saw it clearly. Desire is the root of suffering. Not because wanting is evil, but because wanting what you cannot guarantee puts you in a permanent state of anxiety. You become a hostage to outcomes. And a hostage is not free. But here is where almost everyone misunderstands this teaching. Detachment does not mean doing nothing. Detachment means doing everything within your power and refusing to be emotionally chained to the result. There is a massive difference. A soldier who fights with everything he has and accepts death as a possible outcome is detached. A soldier who refuses to fight because he's afraid of dying is not detached, he is a coward wearing detachment as a mask. And that is what most of you are doing. You are using Stoic philosophy as an excuse for your fear. You say things like, "I'm just letting it go," when what you actually mean is, "I'm terrified of rejection so I won't try." You say, "It is what it is," when what you actually mean is, "I don't have the courage to change it." You have turned one of the most powerful frameworks in human history into a participation trophy for your own passivity. And the cost? The cost is your entire life. Every opportunity you let pass. Every relationship you never pursued. Every ambition you quietly abandoned. You told yourself you were being philosophical. You were being afraid. There is nothing stoic about fear. Marcus Aurelius did not sit in his tent while Rome burned and say, "Well, it is what it is." He acted with total commitment and total emotional detachment from the outcome simultaneously. He did his duty fully and accepted whatever came. That is mastery. That is the model. And you are not following it. You are following a watered-down version that lets you stay comfortable. Detachment is not the absence of action. Detachment is action without emotional slavery to results. Learn the difference or keep losing. Number 2. Machiavelli understood something Epictetus never had to face, that sometimes the only correct response is aggression, and retreating inward in that moment will get you obliterated. Epictetus was a slave. He found freedom in his mind because his body was not his to command. That is profound. That is real. But it is also a specific strategy for a specific situation. Machiavelli lived in a world where if you turned inward while your enemies circled, you didn't achieve enlightenment, you achieved a knife in your back. He watched men of power his entire life. He studied them obsessively. And he reached a conclusion that makes comfortable people uncomfortable to this day. Power is not given to those who wait. Power is taken by those who act. Fortune, he said, is like a river. When it floods, it destroys everything in its path. But when it is calm, men can build dams and dikes to control it. The point is not that fortune controls everything. The point is that fortune controls everything for the man who does nothing. The man who prepares, who acts aggressively, who seizes the moment, that man bends fortune to his will. Machiavelli was not a philosopher of comfort. He was a philosopher of survival in a world that wanted you dead. And here is the uncomfortable truth you need to hear. You do not live in Epictetus's world. You do not live in a monastery. You live in Machiavelli's world. You live in a world where people compete for promotions, for attention, for resources, for status. You live in a world where the person who acts first wins. Where the person who hesitates gets passed over. Where the person who is too proud to play the game gets played by everyone who isn't. And you have been sitting there, in your comfortable detachment, watching opportunities get seized by people less talented than you but more willing to act. How does that feel? It should feel like a knife. Because that is what it is. Every time you chose inner peace when the situation demanded outer aggression, you lost something real. A job. A relationship. A position. An advantage. You consoled yourself with philosophy while someone else took what could have been yours. Machiavelli would look at you and shake his head. Not because you're weak. Because you're using the wrong tool. You brought a meditation cushion to a knife fight. The aggressive pursuit of power is not evil. It is a response to a specific set of conditions. When the conditions call for it, it is the only correct answer. And if you cannot recognize when those conditions are in front of you, you will spend your life being peaceful and powerless. That is not a life. That is a waiting room. Number 3. Here is the paradox that ties both systems together and that almost no one sees. Both Stoic detachment and Machiavellian aggression require the exact same internal foundation, emotional control. Epictetus says do not desire what you cannot control. Machiavelli says act aggressively but never let emotion drive your strategy. Strip away the surface and the engine is identical. Both demand that you stop being ruled by fear, by anger, by neediness, by the desperate hunger for approval. Both demand that you become cold inside while the world burns around you. The Stoic achieves this by withdrawing attachment from external things. The Machiavellian achieves this by pursuing external things with surgical precision rather than emotional desperation. Same destination. Different roads. And this is where you need to pay attention, because this is the key to everything. The reason you keep failing is not that you lack intelligence. It is that your emotions are in the driver's seat and you don't even know it. When you retreat, you retreat. Out of fear, not out of principle. When you pursue out of desperation, not out of strategy. You are not stoic. You are scared. You are not Machiavellian. You are needy. And everyone around you can see it. They can smell it. Fear has a scent. Desperation has a scent. And the people who control your life, your boss, your rivals, even your friends, they respond to that scent without even knowing they're doing it. They respect the person who is calm. They dismiss the person who is anxious. They follow the person who seems to want nothing. They manipulate the person who wants everything too badly. This is the foundation. Before you can decide whether to detach or to seize, you must first achieve the emotional control that makes either choice possible. Without it, detachment is cowardice and aggression is recklessness. With it, detachment becomes power and aggression becomes art. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best way to take revenge is to not be like the person who wronged you. Think about what that means. It means your emotional state is your weapon. Not your words. Not your actions. Your state. The person who cannot be provoked has already won, regardless of the outcome. The person who cannot be needled, cannot be manipulated, cannot be drawn out of position, that person is untouchable. And that person can choose, in any given moment, to walk away or to strike. That is what you are building. Not a philosophy. A capacity. The capacity to choose your response instead of being driven to it. Everything else flows from there. Number 4. Let me give you the test. The actual, practical test for when stoic withdrawal serves you and when Machiavellian aggression is the only correct response. Because this is where lives are decided. This is the fork in the road. Ask yourself one question. Is this situation about what you control, or about what you must control? There is a difference. A profound difference. If a situation involves things outside your control, other people's opinions, outcomes you cannot guarantee, circumstances that have already happened, stoic withdrawal is your weapon. You do not fight the ocean. You do not rage at the storm. You retreat to what is yours, your mind, your choices, your character, and you let the storm pass. This is not weakness. This is the highest form of strength. The man who can watch everything he built collapse and still stand upright, still maintain his composure, still say, "This does not define me," that man is free in a way that no emperor can match. Epictetus was beaten and tortured and remained free. Not because he didn't feel pain. Because he refused to let pain define his inner state. That is real. That is not a metaphor. But now consider the other situation. A situation where something is within your control, where action can change the outcome, where your hesitation is the only thing standing between you and what you need. In that situation, stoic withdrawal is not wisdom. It is slow suicide. If someone is undermining you at work and you have evidence and the ability to counter their move, detachment is not the answer. Action is. If an opportunity is in front of you and the only thing between you and seizing it is your own hesitation, letting go is not philosophical. It is self-sabotage dressed in spiritual language. Machiavelli would say fortune favors the bold. He would say the man who waits for perfect conditions will wait forever. He would say that hesitation in the face of a controllable situation is not patience, it is cowardice wearing patience's clothes. And he would be right. The test is simple. Can you affect this? If yes, act. If no, let go. But simple does not mean easy. Because your emotions will fight you on both sides. When you should let go, your ego will scream at you to fight. When you should act, your fear will whisper at you to wait. And if you cannot distinguish between the voice of wisdom and the voice of fear, you will make the wrong choice every single time. This is the skill. Not knowing the philosophy. Knowing which philosophy to apply in this specific moment. That is what separates the master from the student. The student memorizes principles. The master applies them surgically. Number 5. Let me tell you what following the wrong framework actually does to you. Because you need to feel the cost. You need to sit with it. You need to let it make you uncomfortable. When you apply stoic detachment to a situation that demanded aggression, here is what happens. Nothing. That is the damage. Nothing happens. The opportunity passes. The person less qualified gets the position. The relationship you wanted goes to someone who actually asked. The advantage you could have seized dissolves. And you sit there, in your comfortable silence, telling yourself it wasn't meant to be. But it was meant to be. It was right there. You just didn't reach for it. And the worst part? Nobody will ever tell you this. Nobody will pull you aside and say, you lost this because you were too detached. They will let you believe your own story. They will let you think you were being wise. And you will carry that false wisdom into the next situation, and the next, until your entire life is a museum of missed opportunities that you've framed as spiritual growth. That is the cost of misapplied stoicism. A lifetime of comfortable mediocrity that you've convinced yourself is contentment. Now flip it. When you apply Machiavellian aggression to a situation that demanded withdrawal, here is what happens. You destroy yourself. You fight battles that cannot be won. You pursue people who do not want to be pursued. You push for outcomes that were never yours to control. And in doing so, you burn every bridge, exhaust every resource, and alienate every ally. The aggressive pursuit of the uncontrollable is not power. It is madness. It is the gambler who cannot walk away. It is the lover who cannot accept rejection. It is the leader who cannot accept defeat. And it always ends the same way. Complete collapse. Because you cannot control what is not yours to control, and the harder you try, the more it consumes you. So there you are. 2 failure modes. One kills you slowly through inaction. The other kills you quickly through reckless action. And most of you are alternating between the two without even knowing it. Passive when you should be aggressive. Aggressive when you should be passive. Reacting to fear in one moment and to ego in the next. Never once stopping to ask the only question that matters. What does this situation actually require of me? Not what does my philosophy say? Not what would my favorite thinker do? What does this specific situation, right now, require? That question is your compass. And if you cannot ask it honestly, you are lost. Number 6. Here is where it gets dangerous. Here is where you go from someone who understands these ideas to someone who can actually wield them. You stop choosing between detachment and aggression and you start layering them. This is the move that separates the truly dangerous from the merely informed. Most people think it is either or. Either I am the Stoic who lets go or I am the Machiavellian who seizes. The master says both. Simultaneously. In the same breath. You pursue aggressively while being completely detached from the outcome. You act with the full force of your will while accepting that failure is a real and acceptable possibility. You go after what you want with everything you have, and if you do not get it, you feel nothing. Not numbness. Not suppression. Genuine, bone-deep indifference to the result. This is not a contradiction. This is the highest synthesis. Think about what a person like this looks like in the real world. They go after the promotion with total commitment. They prepare. They maneuver. They position themselves. They do everything in their power to win. And if they do not get it, they walk out the same person they walked in. No bitterness. No collapse. No desperate questioning of their worth. They simply move to the next thing. Now think about how terrifying that is to the people around them. The boss who denied the promotion expected disappointment. Expected groveling. Expected the person to be diminished. Instead, they got nothing. Calm. Unbothered. Already looking forward. That is power. Not the promotion. The reaction. Or rather, the absence of reaction. The person who wants everything and needs nothing is the most dangerous person in any room. They cannot be controlled through hope because they do not hope. They cannot be controlled through fear because they do not fear loss. They cannot be manipulated through approval because they do not need it. They are simultaneously the most aggressive and the most detached person present. And everyone else is just reacting to them. This is what Machiavelli meant when he talked about the lion and the fox. The lion represents raw power and aggression. The fox represents cunning and adaptability. You need both. The lion without the fox is a brute who gets outsmarted. The fox without the lion is a coward who gets overwhelmed. But combine them, combine raw aggressive force with strategic cunning and emotional detachment, and you become something that cannot be beaten. Only outlasted. And if you are also stoic enough to accept even that, then you cannot even be outlasted. You simply endure. That is the goal. Not to win every battle. To become the kind of person who cannot be broken by any outcome. Victory or defeat, you remain intact. That is the synthesis. That is the unified framework. Aggressive action, strategic cunning, total emotional detachment from results. All three. All the time. Number 7. You need to stop telling people which framework you follow. Right now. Today. This is not a small thing. This is the thing that gets people flagged, targeted, and neutralized. The moment you label yourself, you become predictable. And predictable people are controllable people. If you tell people you are a stoic, they will exploit your patience. They will push boundaries knowing you will not react. They will take from you slowly, piece by piece, betting that your philosophy will keep you from fighting back. And they will be right, because you have already announced your strategy. If you tell people you are Machiavellian, they will distrust you on sight. They will never let you close. They will watch you constantly, waiting for the moment you make your move. You have handed them the playbook and they will use it against you. The master reveals nothing. Not because they are hiding. Because labels are limitations. When you call yourself a stoic, you feel pressure to act stoic even when the situation demands aggression. When you call yourself a Machiavellian, you feel pressure to scheme even when the situation demands stillness. The label becomes a cage. And you built it yourself. Epictetus said it is impossible for a person to learn what they think they already know. He was talking about philosophy, but it applies to identity. If you have already decided who you are, you cannot become who you need to be. So stop deciding. Stop announcing. Stop wearing your framework like a badge. Instead, become someone who cannot be categorized. Someone who withdraws when withdrawal is correct and strikes when striking is correct, and who shows no external sign of the shift. To the outside world, you are simply someone who always seems to do the right thing at the right time. They cannot figure you out because there is nothing to figure out. You are not following a system. You are responding to reality. And reality does not care about your labels. Real power is unrecognizable. The most dangerous person is not the one who announces their danger. It is the one who looks completely harmless until the moment they are not. This is what it means to be dangerously clever. Not clever in the way people admire. Clever in the way people fear. The kind of clever that makes people uncomfortable without knowing why. The kind that makes them leave your presence feeling like something happened but unable to say what. That is the effect you are going for. Not intimidation. Not charm. Uncertainty. When people are uncertain about you, they cannot form a strategy against you. They are paralyzed by their own inability to categorize you. And paralysis is the most powerful weapon in existence because it requires you to do nothing. They defeat themselves. You just stand there. Detached. Aggressive. Unlabeled. Untouchable. Now let me bring this together, because everything I have told you converges on a single point. The question was never detach or seize. That question is for people who think in categories. The question has always been this. Can you hold two opposing truths in your mind at the same time and act on both without contradiction? Can you desire everything and need nothing? Can you pursue with total commitment and accept total failure? Can you be the lion and the fox, the stoic and the strategist, the person who walks away and the person who never backs down? Because if you can, you are not following a philosophy. You have become something else entirely. You have become someone who is no longer ruled by frameworks. You use them. All of them. Whatever the moment demands. Epictetus gives you the inner fortress. Machiavelli gives you the outer campaign. Marcus Aurelius gives you the composure to execute both without flinching. These are not competing systems. They are layers of the same architecture. The foundation is emotional control. The walls are stoic detachment. The weapons are Machiavellian aggression. The roof is the wisdom to know which to deploy and when. And the person who lives inside that structure is someone who cannot be broken by any external force. Not because they are invulnerable. Because they have made peace with vulnerability. They act with full force and accept full consequence. They pursue with everything and are attached to nothing. That is the synthesis. That is the unified framework that neither Epictetus nor Machiavelli articulated alone but that both were reaching toward from opposite ends of the same truth. Freedom is not the absence of desire. Freedom is the presence of desire without dependency. Power is not the absence of emotion. Power is the presence of emotion without surrender to it. You want to know what the cost of not understanding this has been? Look at your life. Look at the moments you retreated when you should have charged. Look at the moments you charged when you should have retreated. Look at the relationships you lost because you were too proud to pursue them. Look at the dignity you lost because you were too desperate to hold on. Every one of those moments was a failure to read the situation correctly. Not a failure of character. A failure of framework. You had the wrong tool in your hand and you swung anyway. You brought detachment to a moment that needed aggression. You brought aggression to a moment that needed stillness. And you paid for it. Every time. But here is what changes today. You now have the test. Can I affect this? If yes, act with everything you have. If no, let go with everything you are. And in both cases, remain emotionally untouched by the outcome. That is the entire system. One question. Two responses. One state of mind. The question is simple. Can I affect this? The responses are clear. Act or let go. The state of mind is the hard part. Untouched. Unmoved. Unbroken. Whether you win or lose. Whether you are praised or mocked. Whether you are loved or abandoned. Untouched. Not because you do not care. Because you have decided that your inner state is not for sale. It is not a function of outcomes. It is not a reward for success or a punishment for failure. It is yours. Unconditionally. That is what Epictetus meant by freedom. That is what Machiavelli meant by power. That is what Marcus Aurelius meant by composure. Same destination. 3 roads. And you have been walking only one of them your entire life, wondering why you keep ending up in the same place. It is because one road is not enough. You need all 3. You need the Stoic's inner fortress, the strategist's outer aggression, and the emperor's unshakable composure holding them together. So here is what I want you to do. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when you have thought about it enough. Right now. Today, you will face a moment where you have to choose. Someone will say something that provokes you. An opportunity will appear that scares you. A situation will demand a response and you will feel the old pull, the pull toward the wrong framework. The pull toward passivity when action is needed. The pull toward aggression when stillness is needed. In that moment, I want you to stop. One breath. Ask the question. Can I affect this? If the answer is yes, act. Act with everything. Do not hesitate. Do not second guess. Move. If the answer is no, let go. Completely. Not partially. Not with a lingering resentment. Completely. Walk away and do not look back. And in both cases, watch your emotions. Do not let them choose for you. Do not let fear dress itself up as wisdom. Do not let ego dress itself up as courage. Strip them naked and look at them honestly. Is this fear talking or is this principle talking? Is this pride talking or is this strategy talking? You will know the difference if you are honest. And if you are not honest, no philosophy in the world can save you. Because every framework requires one thing that no book can give you. The courage to see yourself clearly. The willingness to admit when you have been using detachment as a cover for cowardice. The willingness to admit when you have been using aggression as a cover for insecurity. That honesty is the real foundation. Not stoicism. Not Machiavellianism. Brutal, unflinching honesty about your own motivations. Once you have that, the frameworks become tools. Without it, they become excuses. And you have been making excuses your whole life. We both know it. The question is whether you stop today. Most people will not. Most people will hear all of this, feel something for a moment, and then go back to their patterns by tomorrow morning. They will retreat when they should act because it feels safer. They will act when they should retreat because their ego cannot tolerate stillness. And they will call their dysfunction by philosophical names so they never have to face it. That is most people. That is the herd. That is the 99%. But you are listening to this for a reason. Something in you knows that the way you have been operating is not working. Something in you is tired of losing opportunities to people less thoughtful than you. Something in you is tired of watching your own life happen to you instead of through you. That something is the beginning of mastery. Not the end. The beginning. The recognition that you have been using the wrong framework at the wrong time and that it has been costing you everything. That recognition is worth more than 100 techniques. Because techniques can be memorized. Recognition must be earned through pain. And you have earned it. So now you decide. Do you keep alternating between passive detachment and reckless aggression, letting your emotions choose your framework for you? Or do you build the internal architecture that lets you choose, in every moment, the exact right response? The inner fortress of the Stoic. The outer aggression of the strategist. The composure of the emperor. All three. All the time. No labels. No announcements. No badges. Just a person who always seems to know exactly what to do and who never seems shaken by the result. That person is not born. That person is built. And the construction starts the moment you stop pretending you already have it figured out. Detach from everything or seize everything. You already know the answer now. You do both. You detach from the outcome and you seize the action. You let go of the result and you grab the process with both hands. You want nothing and you pursue everything. That is not a contradiction. That is the most dangerous state a human being can occupy. And it is available to you. Right now. Not after more study. Not after more preparation. Not after you feel ready. You will never feel ready. Ready is a lie your fear tells you to keep you in place. You act now. You let go now. You build the architecture now. One breath. One question. Can I affect this? Act or release. And remain untouched. That is the ruthless art Machiavelli perfected, refined through the inner freedom Epictetus discovered, held steady by the composure Marcus Aurelius embodied. It is not one philosophy. It is all of them, fused into a single way of being. And now it is yours. If you are ready to claim it, go to the comments right now and write these 4 words. I am untouchable. Not because you already are. Because writing it is the first act of becoming it. The words come first. The reality follows. That is how transformation works. You declare, then you become. So declare. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Right now. I am untouchable. And then start building. One moment at a time. One question at a time. Can I affect this? Act or release. Untouched. Again and again and again until it is not something you do. It is something you are. That is the work. That is the path. That is the only path that leads somewhere worth going. And it starts the moment you decide that being comfortable is no longer enough. That being peaceful is not the same as being powerful. That being liked is not the same as being respected. And that the person who can hold contradiction without breaking is the person who wins everything worth having. Go.